Okay, folks, we're back, and yeah. By the way, during the break, TJ reminded me that when he was 8, he does remember that he made a really nice play one game, and yes, I did jump up and run out of the dugout and chase him around the field as if I was going to beat him up. My kids liked that, and when I say my kids, I mean the kids that played for me. TJ's version of the story was a lot longer, and he elaborates on his own skills too much, so while he's in studio, I'm not letting him get a live mic. I'm enjoying the calls this morning, so we're going to get right back to the phones. In fact, we got John who's calling in. Hey, John, you're on Let Them Play.
Good morning, Coach Tony. How are you?
Great. What's going on?
I don't know what I'm more excited about, that you actually have your phone lines working this morning. Your Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Jets. That you use the word hoot. Yeah, I don't know what I'm more excited about. But
what's wrong with hoot? All right, so now wait. So wait. So now I got to call it the H word. You know, am I getting censored again?
If you could explain to the callers what a hoot is, and then we'd all be better off.
A hoot is a good time. All right, do me a favor. Get to the point.
Well, I think everybody who's called in pretty much has been on the same theme about what a pleasure it is coaching your own child, but also dealing with the challenges that you have coaching your child. I don't want to go back over the same stuff, but I think the most important thing is, like I think what you said is communication between yourself and your child, that I'm going to have to be a little bit harder on you sometimes. I might have to use you as an example. You know, I think if you sit down with your child beforehand and explain, look, you know, I'm your dad, and I love you, and you have a special communication with them, it's going to be a little different. I think it takes a special kid to have their father as a coach, and I think that's the part that you really haven't touched on, is it really takes a special son or daughter to have their father as their coach, because the other kids are going to give them a little bit of a hard time. The other parents are going to say, like you said before, the kid's only playing because his dad's on the team, and you have to explain to him, look, I might have to take you out from time to time, and there's nothing you did wrong or anything else, but I'm going to try to be as fair as I can to anybody, and it's hard, because you know why? Say whatever you want, you're always going to want to be more fair to your child, when in essence you end up being harder on your kid than most of the other kids.
Absolutely. You nailed it. You're doing it with the best of intentions, but if you don't do it right, it's actually a very bad thing. You're taking your kid who, let's say, has some promise, and you're actually beating them down a little bit. And it's like I said, the communication aspect of this is of monumental importance. I don't know how else to say that. But you know what? There are certainly coaches who don't fit into that mold and certainly have their own agendas. So, John, thank you very much for the call. Great to hear from you, as always. John did bring up a really good point. Matter of fact, one of our listeners sent an email in this week that I want to get to, because this one kind of outlines some of the... that was a bad Darth Vader. I had something in my throat. I was going to talk about the dark side. That was really bad. Damn, sorry. All right, we got an email in. I got to work on my Darth Vader. If you could... There you go, better. All right, Joe from Yonkers wrote in and he said, hey, Coach Tony, I think you're right. This topic could very well make for a good show. The problem is most parents, and this is where he gets into his opinion, most parents are not honest about coaching their own kids. Many fathers form travel teams because their sons cannot compete on a higher level team or play their favorite position. There's one parent in particular that I know who is now forming his third team in 3 years because year after year he's asked to leave and relinquish his coaching position, and he's afraid that no one else will be willing to kiss his kid's butt and put up with his antics. Guys like this should not be coaching their own kids, or anyone else's kids for that matter. At some point, a cold glass of water is going to get thrown in the face of both the father and the son. This poor kid is being fed bad information about just how good he really is, and the first time he's coached by somebody other than Daddy, he's going to get a real life lesson. The real shame of it all is that there are other kids and parents in this program who have had to deal with this nonsense for years. And looking back now, these kids were robbed of their youth sports experience because of a selfish loser who cares about his kid and nothing else. Joe, overall, great email and a great point. But I got to tell you, nobody was robbed of anything. Actually, you know what? Let me take that back. The kids were indeed robbed. The kids in this community whose parents have had to, quote, deal with this, you know what? The kids were indeed robbed, but they were robbed by their own parents. Listen up. Life is full of choices, and I don't think there were any guns pointed at the heads of any of these parents. If you say this went on for years, guess what? Pull your kid out and have him play somewhere else. Normally, I would say you should have complained to the powers that be. But you know what? I continue to learn more and more that for every Mongo coach, there is at least one Mongo administrator in the town who allows the Mongo coach in their program. So let's assume your hands were tied in terms of getting rid of the coach. I'll give you that one, let's just say. If nobody cares enough about your kid to make sure that he or she has a good coach, then guess what? Make sure you care enough. You mentioned that many parents start their own teams to unfairly benefit their own kids. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of the gist of it. Well, some parents start teams to make sure their kids fairly benefit. I did it. I don't know if you know how long you've been listening to the show, Joe, but I did it myself. And while I would have loved for my kid to ideally represent his hometown on the travel team, there was no way on earth I was going to force him to sacrifice anything at the age of 9 or 10, sacrifice anything significant in order to do so. And you know what? It was the best decision that I ever made on behalf of my kid. He made a completely new group of friends, not because he lost his old friends. This was in addition to the kids that he has as buddies in town. It exposed him to a higher level of competition, and it did wonders for his confidence both on and off the field. So do me a favor, Joe. I do like your email, but don't be one of those parents who stood on the sidelines watching something less than great happen to his own kid and then try to pin the blame on somebody else. You know, this goes right into all the good things that can happen for both you and your kids if you coach them and coach them the right way. I'm sorry, but I think you blew a really cool opportunity, and until somebody invents a time machine, you're just dumb out of luck. And I don't know how else to say it. There was another lesson great email that came in that I want to address. Where is it? Here we go. Ben from Florida. His internet connection must be down, so he's not calling in. But Ben from Florida wrote it and said, "Hey, Coach Tony, I've had parents tell me that they coach because they want to bond with their kid. Do us a favor and don't do it on the ball field at the expense of other kids. Bond at home or at the zoo. The parent-coach will always be a problem because he can never look at his child objectively." Ben, I think I know where you're coming from, but I have to disagree with you for the most part here. Coaching can indeed, and I think it's been clearly illustrated by most, if not all, of our callers today, coaching can indeed be an amazing bonding experience for the parent and for the child. Now, having said that, if coaching is your only bonding experience, then I think you may have a point, because it most definitely could be at the expense of other kids. And at the same time, let's put that in perspective. You know, the expense of other kids, maybe. If you have a kid that is less than, an optimal player, and you're unfairly giving that kid preferential treatment, then it's certainly at the expense of other kids. And again, you hope you can point something like that out to one of the idiots that runs your league. But don't hold your breath for anybody to change that. But all kidding aside, it could be an issue. But I think the pluses so far outweigh the minuses if you take a really good approach to coaching your own kid. And hey, if a dad or a mom are bonding with their kid through a coaching experience, it better be really, really bad before you start to say it's at the detriment of other kids. So thanks for illustrating how little brain power you got. I don't know if it's the water in Florida, but I haven't insulted anybody today. I got to poke somebody in the nose. I came close to poking John and Chris in the nose. All right. A couple more emails. We got a couple more minutes, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we got this one in from Larry. Larry writes in and says, "Hey, Coach Tony, I coached my son from T-ball through to his 15-year-old season. I think it's extremely difficult to separate coach from dad. I want to say that I don't think my son ever worried about making a mistake when I was in the dugout or in the third base coaching box, especially at younger ages where you may see 36, quote, mistakes in a ball game. Larry, you're right, and you're kind of on target with what we've been saying throughout the course of the show, and I'm glad that this common thread is resonating here. It is very difficult to separate coach from dad. I'll go so far as to say, both for the kid and the adult. So my advice has always been this, especially at those younger ages. If you're having trouble separating coach from dad, don't try to. I think, listen, when your kid gets to a serious level, you're probably not his coach anymore. You know, I'm very fortunate to be part, and here comes the plug, I'm very fortunate to be part of Team New York Baseball. And you know what, if TJ continues to play baseball and he goes through to, you know, the 16, 17, 18-year-old levels of Team New York, he's going to be playing as high a level of baseball as exists anywhere in this country. And if I'm fortunate enough to still be coaching, he and I may have a very new dynamic to go through. But most of us never get to that level, either as coaches or our kids as players. We'll just never get to that level. So enjoy it while you can. Take some pride in the fact that you're a good mom coach or a good dad coach, and make sure mom and dad is the first part of that that combined word. You're mom or dad first, you are coach second. The kids know it. They don't have to learn that. That's just something that's ingrained in their personalities. When TJ sees me, he sees dad. When he sees me, coach other kids, maybe I'm coach first, but I'm certainly dad first. Okay, you know what? We'll try to squeeze one more in here. Rick writes in and says, "Hey, Coach Tony, my kids have been all the way through the ranks. One of my kids is pitching in college right now, and I promise you that if you don't coach your own sons, you're missing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you both could cherish for the rest of your lives. I did, however, do just what you said earlier and have other coaches involved so they could get my kids could get some other exposure than just me. And that was also a very, very good decision. But guess what? To this day, when he struggles with his control or his curveball, he comes to me, not even his college coach." Well, you know what? Tell you what, Rick, that's obviously a good test.